One of the most important discoveries a person can make is that of self-discovery. And thus we have The Trench Artist by Rico Lamoureux, all rights reserved. Our orders were to assist, in other words, help prepare the military forces of the Philippines. One of their main islands had been taken over by Muslim extremists, a few of ISIS's infamous jihadists having made their way to the nation's shores to spearhead the fight. That word, assist, very carefully chosen to help convince the American people that we weren't actually meddling ourselves into another very long war, only lending a helping hand in the common goal of eliminating terrorism. Lending a helping hand was all it was supposed to be. Standing on the coaching sidelines while the Filipinos actually went in and pulled the triggers. But what hadn't been expected was the sheer number of militants awaiting their arrival, heavily armed and scattered throughout the small city they held captive. It was like an ambush on a massive scale, the enemy seeming to know where their adversaries would land, as if it were a slaughterhouse in waiting. And indeed, that is what it had become when that first wave of boots hit the ground. The bodies which filled them sprayed with so much firepower, they were practically disintegrated where they stood. This changed everything. Our radio and video communication were no longer enough. We had to close the distance of our involvement and physically join the fight. My first, fresh out of infantry training, and here I thought I'd be spared from any actual combat. The only possible threat I had thought of in disrupting my 5-year plan being the nearby nuke-obsessed North Koreans. I had been in a chopper a number of times, but this flight felt different, those powerful blades cutting through the night air and reverberating down to my equally rapid beating heart. No matter how many drills, when it comes to the real deal, you can't help but feel more scared than ever before. That safety bubble you've always known now popped as you truly realize your life is now on the line. We jumped out of the chopper and down into a canopy of trees, through infrared taking out a few dozen militants before rappelling down and advancing. This was on the outskirts of the small city, and as we made our way from a jungle of foliage and towards one of cement, the fighting became more intense. Having to deal with everything from small rockets and bullets whizzing past us to a pocket of enemies popping up every now and then to engage in close-quarter combat. It was during this chaos when the lives I took hit me so hard that I knew these instant moments would not only stay with me forever, but were changing me right on the spot. From brain spatter showering my face to the machete I had to pick up from a dying enemy when my gun jammed, using the very weapon I had just defended myself against to now save my own life as another lunged for me. Burying that long blade as deep as I could, feeling it pierce his sternum and heart as his shock and agony echoed on down through the handle in my tight grasp. My adrenaline leading me to break off the blade inside him since it refused to budge from his body. For something told me I still needed it. Again, seeming to appear out of nowhere, another enemy, a natural reaction of stepping off the line of attack. It had been drilled into me for so many weeks, now keeping me alive as I simultaneously struck the side of his temple with the base of the machete handle with such force that I heard the skull crack, that side of his face instantly sagging down now that the bone structure had been shattered. He was the last, my Filipino and American comrades having finished up the current wave of ISIS fighters. But we were still out in the open, random gunfire threatening to take us out at any moment. And so we began to dig deep and fast into the earth we stood upon, our collapsing shovels taking us over 1.5 meters down. It was from this trench that we were able to catch our breath. radioing out for air support while sending out a few rounds every now and then to let the enemy know we were still alive and well. Good news, we were no longer in imminent danger. Bad news, an airstrike would take at least an hour. And so we hunkered down, water never tasting so good, refueling a little with a stick of jerky. An hour may not seem that long to wait, but under these conditions, it can feel 4 times as long. Heartbeat still hyped up from the adrenaline of taking lives, I felt fidgety, scraping the walls of our trench until my hand filled with this foreign dirt. As I felt it, smelled it, let it pour through my fingers, thoughts of home arose, of playing war in the backyard with my brothers during a more innocent time. The dirt wasn't much different. In fact, if I closed my eyes and imagined a little, I was back in my childhood. This led me to think how we weren't so different than those foreigners we were fighting. I mean, yes, as far as beliefs and how to live by them, sure, we were pretty much on the opposite end of the spectrum, but I'm talking about the core of being human. We all have memories from childhood of being close to the earth, running, playing, growing in the soil alongside the grass, trees, and everything else. Back down memory lane, my siblings and I using sticks as guns. So ironic that I, the artist in the family, ended up becoming the real-life soldier. My older brother working under cars all day, while my younger one wears a hat, a hard hat, and builds buildings. Yeah, we come from a family of hand users. The strength of mom and dads laboring in a factory for a few decades, making sure their 3 boys at least reached the tier above them. One of not using only their hands, but their minds as well. Funny how such a sad thought of my parents can nearly bring me to tears, even under such violent circumstances as this. Suffering from arthritic joints, the price they had to pay for their kids to have a better future. But I had to draw the line when talk came up of mortgaging the house in order to send me to art school. I would never have been able to live with myself if I had accepted their selflessness. Making the decision to walk into a recruitment station and sign an enlistment form before they could sign away the only home me and my brothers had ever known. The plan was simple enough. Pay for art school with a GI Bill. After all, experience equals wisdom, and this is invaluable to one who creates. So I would see the world, pay for school, and grow as an artist. But life's teaching tactics can be so far from expectations you start off with, and before you know it, you're looking back at the more innocent version of yourself standing at those crossroads, wondering if you really did make the right decision or not. I think of those who have come before me, Bartholdi, Michelangelo, Rodin, my heroes, my true teachers. What would they say of my path to artistry? A powerful blast to the city we sit on the edge of snaps me out of such pondering, only now fully realizing what I've been doing with my hands. The machete handle I've been holding onto half the night has been carved with a comrade's pocket knife, a sculptured hourglass with frames being that of men and women in suffering on one end, men and women in bliss on the other. Even in this partial moonlight, I can tell it's the finest piece I've created to date. I think there'll be a way to encase sand against the hourglass bulbs. Better yet, the dirt which surrounds me. And so I grab a handful and fill one of the pockets to my fatigues. I look down at my trench art one more time before we receive the orders to follow up the airstrike with our ground power, marking another turning point in my life as I now understand this will be my area of expertise, the medium I will use to make the world a more beautiful place, transforming tools of war into compositions that provoke thought, weapons of carnage into works of art. And so I crawl my way out of the trench and towards my future. And this is the story of substance to ponder over today. So, if you have any thoughts, if you'd like to join in on the conversation about today's story, please feel free to do so in the comments section below. Again, thanks so much for coming along on the journeys and your support of the Flash Fiction Ponders author readings. It really means a lot to this artist. So, as always, until next time, take care of yourselves.